The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Welcome back to Schlocktoberfest here on World Class Bullshitters, where today we're going to be talking about some of our scariest personal experiences. And by we, I mean me, Nick, and Kendo. And we're going to be telling you guys about some scary supernatural things that have happened to us, some things that we can't explain, but we're going to talk about it. And what we'd like to do is have you out there tell us if you've had any of these experiences. So before we even get started, go down to the comments and let us know some personal scary experiences that you've had yourself. So guys, this was a fun one because it's a little different than talking about movies or candy or other things like that. So, Nick, would you want to go first and share a scary personal experience?
Yeah, so this happened to me, I want to say around high school, maybe '03, no, '02, '03. During, let's see, probably around this time of year when it was getting colder, it wasn't as warm outside, it was getting darker sooner. And, in high school, I was always out with friends, or always doing dumb stuff. Driving around, staying out late, just a bunch of, just doing teenage stuff. So, one of my friends who lives, out in the middle of nowhere has said, "Hey man, there's this house that's there that people say is, haunted or whatever, and this, that, and the other." And I'm just like, let's go. He didn't even finish his story. He didn't finish the Preston Ford or anything. That he's like, let's go. I'm like, all right, cool. And, at this time in my life, I think, what was it? I was constantly carrying a point and shoot camera in my pocket, and I had a 14 megapixel one at the time, really nice one. And I made sure like every couple of days I'd charge it, and it was always full battery. At least had the battery with it. Had a good amount of battery, so I could take pictures and stuff when I was with friends and things like that. So I could make memories and remember stuff, and just have because I was always out with my friends, and I just wanted to have pictures and stuff of what we were doing. Sometimes just not evidence. So at this point I was living in Tennessee. We were probably in the main drag of Pigeon Forge, and so we were at, I think, Denny's or something. And so my friend's like, all right, let's hop in the car and go. So we drive around 20 minutes towards this place. Like, and about 10 minutes into the drive, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're in the back of, we're in the woods, just, on a dirt road, just nowhere. We go down, and, we eventually kind of see this house. We go down into this gully, and, we stop our cars. And we get out and we just see this broken down house, and the moon's out and everything, and that, so you could see everything fairly clearly. And we just got out and we just tried to walk. I didn't want to walk in the house because I was still a fat ass, so I didn't want to break anything and fall through stuff, and they had to drag me out. So I just didn't walk into the the broken down abandoned house. But it looked creepy, man. It looked spooky. It was the door was still locked for some reason, but you could get through the windows and stuff because they were broken out. Just there were overgrown vines and stuff on there and everything, and there was grass probably up to my shoulders, just in the area. You'd really crawl through it. It was almost like corn stalks. And I was just snapping pictures of the place because oh, this looks really cool. It's gonna look awesome if I Photoshop it or whatever later and make it look into something. And I was just doing that whole thing and getting pictures of my friends up on the front of the house and stuff, and this, that, and the other. And and with a point and shoot camera, if you I had it set up to where you shoot and then you preview for a second. So I kept doing that, and and it was one of the ones where if you put your finger down on the trigger, it would keep doing that constantly. It would shoot, review, shoot, review. So I do that. I'm looking at the viewer on the back, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, It goes from, showing the house and showing everything to just showing clouds and smoke. It goes from being clear to just showing smoke for the next like 5 images. And I had to stop and be like, what the fuck? And I said it fairly loudly to my friends, like, heard it. And they're like, what's going on? I was like, you guys need to come see this. And like, I hoped to God that those pictures saved and it wasn't just me like being weird and hallucinating or whatever the fuck. So everybody comes around me and I review the images. And sure enough, there are 5 images. Like, it goes from like my friends on the house fucking around looking at stuff to just these like weird clouds of smoke anywhere. And it wasn't me exhaling it. I'm pretty sure it wasn't me exhaling in front of the camera, because if it was, you'd see a little bit of it, but not a lot. This was the entire image filled with like just clouds and smoke. It was weird. I couldn't describe it, and it was just odd to see all of a sudden. And we kind of got freaked out, and we just fucking left. We never we just left. We just never went back there.
Today's video is brought to you by me, Jeff Hicks, and my new book, Tits and Art. Tits and Art, or TNA, is my new annual project. It's a big 11x17 full-color book busting out with beautiful women and beautiful art. Sign up today, link in the description below.
Yeah, I go. Once you guys go, I'll tell you another one.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. The only thing I've ever had that was like kind of creepy is me and a friend were out playing frisbee golf at Kensington Park outside of Milford, Michigan. And we were on like, I don't remember what hole it was, but there was like this clearing and there was trees on both sides, and you come walking up around the corner and then you get to like the tee box area. And right as we got there, there was like this like grayish white like shapy thing in like that clearing, and it was drifting into the trees. And it was one of those things where we both saw it, and then we just kind of looked at each other like, did you see that? It's like, yeah. And it was like, well, there's got to be a reasonable, logical explanation for this. There's probably somebody smoking in there or something's going on. But it wasn't like a cloud, it was like a column. So then when we both threw our discs and we walked up to where that clearing was at, he went into one side and I went into the other side just to see if we could find any evidences of what it would be or what it would that would support what we just saw and give us a rational, logical explanation for it. And yeah, there was nothing in that area that explained what it was. Do I think it was a ghost or an apparition? No, because I don't believe in that shit. But at the same time, it's like I have no explanation for what it was, and that was pretty fucking creepy and weird. So who knows? But that was my whole thing. It's like, wow, we did not have a rational explanation for what it was that we saw, how we saw this column of grayish white something or another just moving through the clearing. So it was like, fuck, what was that? So I don't know. Maybe there was just eerie. Yeah, it is eerie. It was at the time. Still is a little bit. I mean, could it have been some fucking dopers in there? Very well could have been. They just ran really fast. So who knows? Other than that, one time I saw it literally is an unidentified flying object, because I don't know what the fuck it was. I was driving home, working for my uncle downtown in the city, and driving west on the interstate to get back to where I was living at the time. And there was just like triangular shape in the sky. It wasn't real high up, and it just had like little white, red lights on each of the corners of the triangle. Driving along, saw it, was like, I don't know what that is. There's got to be something that explains what that is. And just it just drove along, got up to where it was at, went past it. It just stayed at the same height. So I thought, well, maybe it's one of those like fucking radio tower things or something like that. It's all right. I got to go back to work for my uncle in the same place because we're at the same location the next day in the morning. I'll make absolutely sure I look on the side of the road to see where this was at and everything. So I took note of it on my little phone just to double check. Next morning driving through, got to that area where I had seen it at and passed it. There was nothing there that would have indicated that it was some kind of like cell tower or radio tower or satellite, anything or another, because there was no tower of anything there that had that shape. So it's like, ooh, I wonder what that was.
Those are always... I love stories like this. I watch so much content about this.
Yeah, especially UFOs, because we're used to seeing a certain the certain shapes and things like that. Kind of just describe something that's fairly common in the UFO community. The triangle with the lights on the ends, or even the red light in the bottom. Like that's fairly common. So it's interesting.
That's the Arizona lights is the famous one of those, right?
Yeah, actually, I have It's funny you say that. I have a video about a military vehicle that they were going to make. They're going to make 3 of them, and for some reason, the second one, those plans for the second one got classified, and it's very well might be that thing they made is the Arizona lights.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it might literally be a U.S. military vehicle they were just testing, and then yeah.
I think Kurt Russell caught that live, or something with Kurt Russell's involved with the Arizona lights. I
remember. Yeah, I remember that being a thing. Yeah.
So, for my scary story experience is, I was by myself. And this was only a few years ago, folks. You might be listening to the channel, or you might have been listening to the channel back then. It was back during my Ohio days. We're going to place this story around 2018, we'll say. So not that long ago, the world was pretty much the same. But I was downstairs in the basement, and this isn't the most flattering story, but I'm downstairs in the bathroom, and all of a sudden, I hear, like, a little noise upstairs, and I'm like, house is old, stuff shifts, I live on a busy street, who knows? But then all of a sudden, I hear someone say my name, and I know I'm all alone in the house, and I froze. So I'm sitting there on the toilet, I hear, Jeffrey. I look up the other way. I think to myself, I'm supposed to be alone, and so I say, fuck it. I get off the toilet, and I leave the house, and I don't come back until a couple hours later. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Because I wasn't drinking or doing anything crazy. It was the middle of the day. I probably had just made a fucking Star Wars video about something, and all of a sudden that happens, and I went, I'm out. It was weird. I wasn't, afraid to return home or anything like that, but I definitely... That was very vivid for me, and I remember that one, and I just went, no, thank you. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys have heard, at least from older people, whatever, if you go by a graveyard and somebody, speaks your name, don't look back kind of thing, right? Have you guys heard that before? Or that rule about, ghosts and stuff from an older person, ever?
No.
Mm-mm.
I've heard it before from people who have told ghost stories and things like that here in the U.S. But something like that happened to my grandmother in India when she was in her 20s. When she lived over there, she was coming back from work one day, and she took another path that she normally doesn't take because I think the other one was blocked off or something is what she's told us. Or something was happening, or there was some street vending thing going on, and she had to take the other route, that she normally doesn't take, that goes by a cemetery or graveyard. So, it's late at night. She's not real happy about it, but she does it. She walks alone because, that's just how things went. And as she's walking by the graveyard, she hears a voice that sounds like her dad. Calling out from the graveyard. Now, in India in those times, it's a very religious community and group of people. They have their superstitions are quite ridiculous and plenty. Trust me, I've encountered them throughout my life, and some of them are just beyond ridiculous. But this is one I've heard. And even this one about hearing voices and not responding to them or not going towards them. I've heard this. I've heard people who tell ghost stories in the U.S. the same thing. Like if you ever hear it, don't go towards them, don't respond to them because it's an evil spirit or something. That's what I've heard. And to hear the story from my grandmother, she told this to me during the pandemic. So this is very recent that I heard about it. And so she hears the voice, and she, for a second she stops. And then she thinks, it's like, oh yeah, her dad is at home, not here. She keeps walking. And apparently the voice is persistent and keeps yelling at her and yelling her name in her dad's voice. Until she gets so far where she can't hear it anymore and she's past the graveyard and she goes home.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And mind you, this happened in another country. And and the rules are the same even there and here from what I know, So that it's one of those things that's like it's like the uncanny valley rule in humans. Like when you see something that's a mannequin and you kind of like people are kind of afraid of it. Is like this rule exists across all of humanity. Why? It's that thing.
It's I just love hearing stuff like that because as the internet makes the world much smaller, we start to see, I won't say trends or similarities like to that degree, but there's like a commonality to a lot of these experiences. And I have a friend whose wife is from Mexico, and she talks about all sorts of scary things and stuff like that too. And definitely with like older people, they talk about it a certain way, as if these things are just really out there. They tell these stories to keep you safe, not to scare you, type of thing.
Yeah,
it's always fascinating to hear those.
Yeah, no, it was during the pandemic when I was spending a lot of time in Tennessee at home, and she told me one day, and I was kind of like, I was a little bit terrified because of the way she was telling it, and I was like, that's crazy because I've heard older people from older friends who have told us ghost stories and stuff. It's like, oh, this is the rule, like if you ever hear a voice call out to you in a familiar family member's voice and say your name, and you don't respond to it, don't say anything, especially if it's from like a graveyard or cemetery. Don't respond to it, don't acknowledge it, just keep going.
Ghost named Griff, just say no.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Got it. Anything else you guys want to add to this?
No, I'm good. That's all I've got.
Man. Yeah, that's all I got.
So, folks, make sure you share your scary personal experiences with us. I'll save it for another time, but I fell asleep driving once, and I heard somebody call out my name, only to help me avoid an accident. So, there you go. There's a little teaser at the end of this. But, folks, thank you for watching. Make sure you're checking out all of the October content here on World Class Bullshitters, and we'll be back all month with more. So, in the meantime, be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other.
.com.
Today's video is brought to you by me, Jeff Hicks, and my new book, Tits and Art. Tits and Art, or TNA, is my new annual project. It's a big 11 by 17 full-color book busting out with beautiful women and beautiful art. Signups are live now, and the campaign begins on September 9th. It's only live for 30 days, so I can guarantee delivery by Christmas. Sign up today, link in the description below. World Class Bullshitters live show, broadcasting live here on YouTube at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday night. You're invited, but your droids, they'll have to wait outside.